Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Raven's Readings. I will be reading to you from The Tower Treasure. It's from 1927, the first in a series of Hardy Boy novels written under the pseudonym Franklin W. Dixon. The two teenage boys, Frank and Joe, work together as a detective team, amateurs still, but occasionally assisting their father, Fenton Hardy, a private investigator. I do readings twice a week. If you subscribe to my Substack newsletter, you'll get notified of my updates as soon as they're ready. If you enjoy this reading or have other classics you'd like to hear, leave me a comment. Last episode, the boys' father, Fenton Hardy, had gone into the city to follow up on the clues they had found, and after a lot of work, they finally found a new lead. Chapter 13. In Poor Quarters. In the meantime, the Hardy boys were finding the suspense almost unbearable. They had expected that their father would be away but a day at the most, but when 2 days dragged by and then 3 and finally an entire week without word from Mr. Hardy, further than a brief note from New York stating he was well, and that the case was not as easy of a solution as he had hoped, they became depressed. "If Dad can't get the thief, no one can," declared Joe with conviction, and "I'm beginning to think that even Dad is falling down in this affair." "Better wait until he admits it himself," suggested Frank, "although I don't mind telling you I'm not very hopeful myself." Frank's preoccupied air had not gone unobserved. Callie Shaw had noticed his distraction. More than once, when she had smiled pleasantly at him as they met one another in the hallways or in the classroom at the high school, he had merely nodded moodily. Callie was too sensible to be hurt by this, but she wondered what was worrying Frank. So one afternoon, when they happened to leave school together, she taxed him with it. "What's on your mind, Frank?" she asked gaily. "You've been going around looking like a human thundercloud for the last week." "Oh, who, me? Oh, I didn't notice," returned Frank heavily. "Yes, you," she replied, mimicking his lifeless tone. "You used to be full of fun. What's the matter? Can't I help?" She glanced up at him eagerly. Frank shook his head. "No, you can't help, Callie. It's about Slim." "Oh, Slim Robinson? Oh, yes. Wasn't that too bad?" said Callie with quick sympathy. "He had to leave school. They tell me he's working in a grocery. And he was so anxious to be a lawyer." "I was talking to him this morning," said Frank. "He pretends he likes the work he's at, but I can tell he wishes he could get back to school again. I'm real sorry for him, and all on account of that confounded tower robbery." "But nobody really believes Mr. Robinson did it," she said. "Of course not. Nobody but Herd Applegate. But until they find who did take the stuff, Mr. Robinson is out of a job and nobody will hire him." "Oh, isn't that too bad? I'm going over to see Paula and Tessie and Mrs. Robinson tonight. Where are they living?" Frank gave Callie the address. Her eyes widened. "Oh, why, that's in one of the poorest sections of the city. Oh, Frank, I had no idea it was that bad." "It is," he said, "and it'll be a lot worse unless Mr. Robinson gets work pretty soon. Slim's earnings aren't nearly enough to keep the family yet." "Isn't there any chance that Mr. Robinson will be cleared?" "Well, that's what's worrying me. Dad is working on the case." "Oh, then why should you worry?" said Callie triumphantly. "Why, that means it'll all be cleared up. Your father could do anything." "I used to think so too," he said, "but he seems to be stuck this time." "What's the matter?" "Well, he went to New York almost a week ago with some clues that Joe and I were certain would clear up the affair, and so far we haven't heard from him, only to know that the case was harder than he expected." "But he hasn't given up, has he?" "Well, no." "Oh, then what are you worrying about, silly? If your father had given up the case, there would be something to worry about. If he's still working on it, well, there's always hope." They walked on in silence for a while. "Let's go out to see the Robinsons," Callie said suddenly. "Well, I've been intending to go out," he said, "but I sort of, well, you know." "Oh, you thought it might embarrass them. Oh, well, it won't. I know Paula and Tessie well, and they're not that kind. They'd appreciate a friendly visit." Frank hesitated. He had the natural shyness of his age, and he felt awkward about visiting the Robinsons in their new home, for he knew they were now in reduced circumstances and might not wish their former friends to see them in their present plight. But Callie's words reassured him. "Oh, all right, I'll go. Oh, we can't stay long, though."
Oh, I know we can't. I must be back in time for supper. We'll just drop in on them so they'll know we haven't forgotten all about them."
"I thought you were going over to see them tonight," he said.
I was, but I've changed my mind. I want you to come with me now.
Frank hailed a passing streetcar bound for the section of the city in which the Robinsons lived, and they got on board. It was a long ride, and the streets became poorer and meaner as they neared the outskirts of Bayport.
"It's an outrage, that's what it is," declared Callie abruptly. "Mrs. Robinson and the girls were always accustomed to having everything so nice, and now they have to live away out here. Oh, I hope your father catches the man that committed that robbery." Her eyes flashed, and for a moment she looked so fierce that Frank laughed. "I suppose you'd like to be judge and jury at his trial, eh?" he chuckled. "Oh, yes, I'd give him 100 years in jail."
When at length they came to the street to which the Robinsons had moved, they found that it was even a poorer thoroughfare than they had expected. There were squalid shacks and tumble-down houses on either side of the narrow street, and ragged children were playing in the roadway. At the far end of the street they came to a small, unpainted cottage that somehow contrived to look neat in spite of the surroundings. The picket fence had been repaired, and the yard had been cleaned up. "This is where they live," said Frank. "It's the neatest place on the whole street." Paula answered their knock. Her face lighted up with pleasure when she saw who the callers were. "Frank and Callie," exclaimed the girl. "You come to see us. Oh, come in. We're dying of loneliness. There hasn't been a soul out this way since we moved." Callie flashed Frank a look of triumph and whispered, "There, now, didn't I tell you they'd be glad?" as they went into the house. They were greeted with kindly dignity by Mrs. Robinson and with girlish good humor by Tessie. Mrs. Robinson received them with the same self-possession she would have shown had they been back at Tower Mansion, and Frank wondered at himself for thinking that these good people might be ashamed to meet their old friends in this new and humbler home. "Oh, we can't stay long," explained Callie, "but Frank and I just thought we'd run out to see how you all are." "Oh, we're all well. That's one mercy to be thankful for," answered Mrs. Robinson. "Perry's working. I suppose you knew that?" "And Mr. Robinson?" inquired Frank. She shook her head. "Not yet." Mrs. Robinson's lip quivered. "It's so hard on him," she said. "Without a recommendation, it looks as though he might have to go to another city to get work." "And leave you here?" "I suppose so. We don't know what to do." "It's so unjust," flared Paula. "Papa didn't have a thing to do with that miserable robbery, and yet he has to suffer for it just the same." "Has your father discovered anything yet, Frank?" asked Mrs. Robinson hesitantly. "I'm sorry," admitted Frank. "We haven't heard from him. He's been away in New York following up with some clues. But so far there's been nothing. Of course, it isn't often that he falls down on a case." "We hardly hope he'll be able to clear Mr. Robinson," she said. "The whole case is so mysterious." "I've given up thinking about it," Tessie declared. "If this is cleared up, all well and good. If it isn't, we won't starve at any rate, and Papa knows we all believe in him." "Yes, I suppose it doesn't do much good to keep talking about it," agreed Mrs. Robinson. "We've gone over it all so thoroughly, there's nothing more to say." So, by tacit consent, the subject was changed, and for the rest of their stay, Frank and Callie chatted of doings at school. Mrs. Robinson and the girls invited them to remain for supper, but Callie insisted that she must go. When they left, they promised faithfully to pay another visit in the near future. Only once again was the subject that was nearest their hearts brought up, and that was when Mrs. Robinson drew Frank to one side as he was leaving. "Promise me one thing," she said. "Let me know as soon as your father returns, if he has any news." "I'll do that, Mrs. Robinson," agreed the boy. "I know what this suspense must be like for you." "It's terrible. But as long as Fenton Hardy is working on the case, I'm sure it will be cleared up if it is humanly possible." And with that, the matter rested. Callie was unusually silent all the way home. It was evident that she'd been profoundly affected by the change that the Tower Mansion mystery had caused in the lives of the Robinsons. Naturally sympathetic and tender-hearted, she felt keenly the injustice of it all, and she realized even more than Frank what it meant to Mrs. Robinson and the girls to move from their comfortable home in the mansion to the squalid and distant part of the city in which they now lived. Callie lived but a few blocks away from the Hardy home, and Frank accompanied her to her gate. "Mercy," she exclaimed, glancing at her watch. "It's after 6. I'm way late for supper." "So am I. See you tomorrow." "Surely, but Frank?" "Yes." Callie hesitated and then looked directly into his eyes. "Frank," she said, "if your father somehow doesn't clear up this affair, you and Joe simply must do it. You must. For the Robinsons. It means so much to them." "Dad won't fall down on it. Don't worry. And Joe and I are giving all the help we can." His confidence was contagious. Callie brightened up immediately. "In that case," she said gaily, "the mystery is as good as solved. The 3 best detectives in the world are working on it. Goodbye, Frank." With that, she ran lightly into the house. End of chapter. Chapter 14. Read Jackley. It was another week before Fenton Hardy returned to Bayport. Contrary to the expectations of the boys, he did not arrive from New York. Instead, he came home early one morning, having reached the city by a train from the west. He had sent no advance notice of his arrival, and the first his sons knew of it was when a servant told them that their father had reached the house in the early hours of the morning, plainly careworn and travel-stained. He had gone immediately to bed, leaving orders that he was on no account to be disturbed. This was at breakfast, and although the boys were wild with impatience to learn the outcome of their father's trip, they were obliged to curb their curiosity. Mr. Hardy was still sleeping when they left for school that morning, and to their surprise, he was asleep when they came back home for lunch. "He must be mighty tired," remarked Joe. "I wonder where on earth he came from." "Probably up all night," said Frank. "When Dad gets hard at work on a case, he forgets all about sleep. I'll bet he found something." "I hope so, but I wish he'd wake up and tell us. I hate to go back to school without knowing." But Mr. Hardy had not awakened by the time the boys set out for school again, although they lingered until they were in danger of being late. All afternoon they were tormented by curiosity. Where had their father been? What had he discovered? As soon as school was out, they fled down the steps, broke away from a group of boys anxious to get up a baseball game, and shattered all records in their race for home. Fenton Hardy was in the library, and as they rushed panting into the room, he grinned broadly at his sons, for he was quite well aware that they were impatient to hear an account of his trip. He looked refreshed after his long sleep, and it was evident that his trip had not been entirely without success, for his manner was cheerful. The Hardy boys knew their father well, and they knew that when a case was difficult of a solution, the great detective became moody and worried. "What luck, Dad?" asked Frank, perching on the arm of an easy-chair. Mr. Hardy raised his eyebrows, pretending not to understand. "About what?" he inquired. "About the case, the Tower Mansion case, the red wig. Did you find out who owned it? Did you catch the thief?" Whoa, said their dad, not all at once. "A question at a time, please. Now, do I understand that you want to know if I found out anything about the Tower Mansion affair?" "Oh, don't keep us waiting, Dad," pleaded Joe. "You know that's what we're asking you about." "Well," answered Mr. Hardy, "yes and no." "That's not much of an answer," objected Frank in disappointment. "It's the best answer I can give, unfortunately. I did find out something about the red wig, but as for connecting its wearer with the Tower robbery, that is still to come." "You traced the fellow who wore the wig?" "I did. And he turned out to be a well-known criminal. Well known to the police, that is." "What's his name?" "Jackley, John Jackley, commonly known as Red." "Oh, because he has red hair?" "No, because he hasn't red hair. That reverses the usual order of nicknames, I imagine. This fellow Jackley just has a fondness for wearing red wigs." "And was he the man who stole Chet's roadster?" "It seems almost certain. I traced the wig, which had been originally stolen from an actor in New York. I traced it to Jackley because his habit of wearing red wigs is well known to the police, and by locating him and keeping a close watch on him and paying a call to his room one night when he was out, I managed to find some of the loot that he'd taken when he robbed the actor. That seemed to connect everything up very well." "Where did you find him?" asked Frank. "In New York. He wasn't even in hiding, for he hadn't been sought for any particular crime at the time. The police seemed to overlook him in their investigation of the dressing room theft."
Did you accuse him? No, I wanted to learn more. When I found the articles that had been stolen from the actor, and I knew the wig found by the roadster had been taken at the same time, I knew Red Jackley was the auto thief. But I wanted to get some information on the Tower Mansion affair if possible. So I took a room in the house in which Jackley was living and kept a close watch on him. Did you learn anything? Mr. Hardy shook his head. Jackley himself spoiled everything. He got mixed up in a jewel robbery and cleared out of the city. Luckily, I heard him packing up and I trailed him. The police were watching him and he couldn't get out by railway. That is, not in the ordinary manner. Instead, he tried to make his escape by jumping a freight. And you still followed? Yeah, I lost him 2 or 3 times, but luck was with me, and somehow I managed to pick up his trail again. He got out of the city, out into New Jersey, and then his luck failed him. A railway detective recognized him, and then the chase was on. Up to that time, I've been content with just keeping behind him. I'd hoped to pose as a fellow fugitive and win his confidence. But when the chase started in real earnest, I had to join with the other officers. And they caught Jackley? Well, not without a chase. Jackley, by the way, was once a railroad man. Strangely enough, he once worked not many miles from here. He managed to steal a railway gasoline speeder and got away from us. But he didn't last long, for the speeder jumped the tracks on a curve and Jackley was badly smashed up. Was he killed? Well, I don't think he'll live. He's in the hospital right now and the doctors say he hasn't much of a chance. Oh, but he's under arrest? Oh, yes. He is being held for the jewel robbery and also for the robbery from the actor's dressing room. But I don't think he'll live to answer either charge. Didn't you find out anything that would connect him with the Tower robbery? Not a thing. The Hardy boys were disappointed, and their expressions showed it. If Red Jackley died, the secret of the Tower robbery would die with him, for by now Frank and Joe were convinced the notorious criminal had indeed been the thief for whose misdeeds Mr. Robinson was now suffering. And if the secret died with him, Mr. Robinson would be doomed to spend the rest of his life under a cloud, suspected of being a thief. Have you seen Jackley yet? Asked Frank. After the smash-up, but I didn't have a chance to talk to him. Oh, you might have been able to get a confession from him. Fenton Hardy nodded. I may be able to get one yet. If he is sure he is going to die, he may admit everything. I tend to make an effort to see him in the hospital and ask him about the Tower robbery anyway. Is he far away? Mr. Hardy named a small city not far distant from Bayport. I explained my mission to the doctor in charge, and he promised to telephone me as soon as it was possible for Jackley to see anyone. I'm convinced that the fellow had something to do with the Tower affair. It's a certainty that he stole the automobile. The wig proves that. By the same token, it's certain he was a man who tried to hold up the ticket office. Having failed on that attempt, it seems more than likely that an old-time criminal like Jackley would look around for something else to do before he left Bayport. You say he used to work near here? Asked Joe. He was once employed by the railroad, said his dad, and he knows all the country around here well. Then he got mixed up in some thefts from freight cars, and after he got out of jail, he became a professional criminal. It was when I was looking over the records that I found out about his fondness for wearing a red wig. That was what eventually proved his undoing. If he had not robbed the actor's dressing room to get the wig that he used when he was in Bayport, I would never have traced him. At that moment, it was announced the chief colleague of the Bayport police force wished to see Fenton Hardy. The detective winked at the boys and told the servant to show the chief in. Chief colleague entered the room, mopping his brow with a handkerchief, for it was a hot day and he was a stout man. Behind him came Detective Smuff, fanning himself with a straw hat. Good afternoon, gentlemen, said Mr. Hardy genially. Won't you sit down? Chief colleague eased himself into an armchair. Detective Smuff leaned against the table. Both glanced inquiringly at the two boys. Unless your business is very private, I'd just as soon have the boys stay, suggested Mr. Hardy pleasantly. He did not trust Chief Colleague and Detective Smuff, who came to him only in emergencies and usually took all the credit for themselves whenever he helped them out of their difficulties. He preferred to have the boys present as witnesses. How about it, Chief? Asked Smuff heavily. Can they stay? I guess so, grunted Chief Colleague, undoing the collar of his uniform. Can't do no good, and they can't do no harm. Well, gentlemen, to what do I owe the honor of this visit? Asked Mr. Hardy. Well, we've been hearing things about this Tower Mansion case, observed Chief Colleague gravely. You've been working on it, eh? Perhaps. You've been out of town for quite a few days. You must have been working on it. That's what we deduce anyway, put in Detective Smuff. Well, perhaps it's my own business. Police business is everybody's business, declared Colleague judicially. What we want to know is, did you find any clues? Detective Smuff fished out the inevitable notebook and pencil. I'll note them down, Chief, he remarked. You may as well put back the notebook, Smuff, snapped Fenton Hardy with annoyance. If I went away, it's my own business, and if I'm still working on the tower robbery, that's my business too. I'll thank you to keep to your own affairs. Chief Colleague opened his mouth, then closed it again. He took out his handkerchief and mopped his brow, all the while staring at Fenton Hardy. Then he turned and gazed at Smuff. Detective Smuff, he said in a solemn voice, did you hear that? I did. What do you think of it, Detective Smuff? I think, Detective Smuff groped for an expression that would encompass the magnitude of the offense. I think Mr. Hardy is guilty of obstructing the cause of justice, he said grandly. Obstructing fiddlesticks, said Mr. Hardy. I'm minding my own business, which is more than some police officers seem capable of doing. Chief Colleague sighed. The trouble with you, Mr. Hardy, he said, is that you won't cooperate. If you cooperated a little more, we would all be farther ahead. There ain't any cooperation at all. Here's me and Smuff doing our best to drive crime out of Bayport, and you won't cooperate. Perhaps the fact that there's $1,000 reward in the case isn't making you anxious for more cooperation, we suggested Fenton Hardy dryly. It ain't got nothing to do with it, replied Chief Colleague virtuously. We're just anxious to see this affair cleared up, that's all. Now, Mr. Hardy, we hear you were with the officers that chased this here notorious criminal, Red Jackley. Mr. Hardy gave a perceptible start. He had no idea that news of the capture of Jackley had reached Bayport, much less that news of his own participation in the chase had reached the city. What of it, he said. Did Jackley have anything to do with this here tower case? How should I know? Wasn't that what you were working on? That's my affair. Detective Smuff and Chief Colleague looked at one another. You ain't cooperating, complained Chief Colleague. You're going to put us to a whole lot of worry and expense just because you won't give us a little cooperation. Well, just what do you mean? Detective Smuff and me was thinking of going over to the hospital where this man Jackley is and giving him the 3rd degree about the tower case. Fenton Hardy's lips narrowed into a straight line. You can't do that. The doctor won't let you see him. Well, we're going to try anyways. There's a train at 7 o'clock, and we aim to have a talk with this fellow Jackley tonight. Mr. Hardy shrugged his shoulders. Go ahead. It means nothing to me. But if you take my advice, you'll stay away. You'll just spoil everything. Jackley will talk when the time comes. Oh, said Detective Smuff triumphantly. Then there is something to it, eh? I knew there was, said Chief Colleague. Come on, Smuff. We'll make this man Jackley talk yet. We're officers of the law, we are, and I'd like to see any doctor keep us from doing our duty. He mopped his brow again and put on his hat and nodded to Fenton Hardy and clumped out of the room. Detective Smuff, putting his notebook into his pocket, followed. The door closed behind them. Mr. Hardy sat back with a gesture of despair. They'll spoil everything, he said. They're just so clumsy that Red Jackley will close up like a clam if they try to make him talk. Perhaps, remarked Frank significantly, they'll miss their train. At that moment the telephone rang, and Mr. Hardy answered it. Hello? Yes, this is Fenton Hardy. Yes? Oh, yes, doctor. He is... Well. Is that so? Won't live till morning? I can't see him? Fine. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Goodbye. He put back the receiver. There, he said wearily, just my luck. Red Jackley is dying, and the doctor says I can see him tonight.
But Collig and Smuff will have first right to talk to him, for they are officials and I'm only a private detective. If Jackley confesses, they'll have the credit for it. They'll just have to miss their train, said Frank. Come on, Joe. Let's see what we can do. End of episode. So the thief has been found and may even confess, if Fenton Hardy can get to him before the police. What is Frank's plan? And will the case finally be solved? If you subscribe to my newsletter, you get notified of my updates as soon as they're ready. If you enjoyed this reading or have other classics you'd like to hear, leave me a comment. Check out my other posts on my Substack at ravensview.substack.com. And remember to share this with your friends. Ta-ta for now.